Hello YouTube, my name is Cryonic Flame and welcome back to Builder's Workshop. In today's episode, we will be learning all about the strategies and techniques of framing. But first, before we jump into this, let's explain what framing actually is. Now, what framing really is adding supports to a wall in a way that it surrounds it and creates a sort of picture frame. For instance, I would take these oak logs and build them up on the sides here, and it creates a frame in the middle with this oak plank wall. And the reason people do this is because it adds depth and it adds the look of supports that makes the build look more realistic, because real builds have supports to keep the build actually standing up straight. Now, we still just have a blank wall, so framing isn't just used to create around the shape, but it can also be used to go through it. In this case, you can create lines throughout the build, maybe support those as well with framing, and then you get yourself a lot better look than just that flat wall. Now, the framing doesn't have to be with just the same block or even the same shape. Like for instance, if I was to use spruce here, I could make a frame a lot better than the one that we created here by just adding some stairs in a place and then connecting them with the slabs in the middle, like that. Framing is also used to show where windows may be, or just to map out a wall. For instance, if I wanted to create an entrance, I would maybe build the framing up right here so we could add a wall there and then cut this part off there, and then we have ourselves a little entranceway right here. But it could also be used to map out where windows are gonna be. For instance, if I wanted to put a window right here, I could do something like this. Now, it won't look that good because this wall is kind of short, but we could just add a little bit to it, just like that. And we sort of planned out where the window is going to be by arching it across the frame. We can map out an area where we might want to put a window, or we can actually put the window in with the framing. For instance, I wanted to put a window here, so I created this area, and now I just have the process of finding where I actually want to put this window. Alright, so now that we know the basics of framing, let's apply it to an actual example. Now, this is just the house that we made in the previous workshop, and so today we are going to be framing just this front bit here. So the reason that I didn't put the upside down stairs here in the previous video is because that is actually where your framing is going to go, because if you think about it, you want to go one out from your structure, which is right here, one out this way and one out this way. And so if we had upside down stairs along here, later we just have to fill it, because we still want that overhang, so we have to bring it out over here. So if we had kept the upside down stairs, it would have just been a little bit more of a bother to put the stairs here. So that's simply what that's simply just what you want to do. You just want to go to the corner, go one out here and one out here to this corner, and then we just build it up to this roof section. And you just want to do this for all the way around. And I should say, for roofs or just walls like this, you want to leave this part unframed. You could frame it if you wanted to, but you could also just leave it unframed and keep this part the only part that's getting framed. But because this area is so big, I am actually going to frame it. But if this was like one or two blocks, then I would get rid of this framing and just have this one, because otherwise it looks a bit cramped. Like, for instance, this one right here, instead of putting a frame there, I would just put it here, and instead of a frame there, I'm just gonna put it here. Now, one thing you can do is, if you're facing things like this, you might want to add framing right here, and all I did was just remove some of the wall blocks that I had here and just put in a frame right there, because I know this is the inside of an actual room, so if you brought this all the way down, then it would be inside the room, and you don't really want that. So I just brought it down to the roof, and so it looks like it's sectioned off, even though it isn't really once you go inside. Okay, so now that you have your posts up, you can just extend the roof by one stair, if it's not gonna turn weirdly like it just did. There, and up here as well, which this part can get a little tricky, but I would just go like that, and then maybe put like that there, something like that, and then we'd bring it over here, and then one out once again. And I'm just bringing this to here because I don't really wish to frame everything in this build. As it's just an example. But then you just do the regular filling of upside down stairs, as most of you are already doing. And here's also where you can determine if certain boxes or shapes you made don't look right or need a change in some way. Like, for instance, instead of this being the same triangle that we had before, I'm turning into just a slant because it wasn't combining well with this roof. And then we have a pretty nice looking house here, and that's just from framing a tiny bit. And so now that we have that, I am just going to do this basic wall with all of the framing that I showed you in the workshop over there. But I will first start out with an entrance, since this is going to be basically our main way of getting in. Now, the way I want to do this is I want to try to single out a certain area that I'm putting my entrance. In this case, I want it right here, or maybe right here. And so what I'm gonna do is, first I'm gonna put a stair up to there, but then I might build my way up around this and find a way to single this area out in a way. And this case, I'm doing a sort of weird structure, but I'm actually adding in a whole other roof, practically, to sort of fill this area. And then we have our entrance, and then let's section this area off, and let's put a window up here, because why not? And although we are using the same type of block and the same type of wood, typically for framing, you want the roof block to be different from the actual framing block. So maybe I would make this dark oak instead of spruce, so it was darker than this, so it looked as if it was separate, which in this case it is. But another thing that you need to know is that not all roofs will be the same block, so your framing block needs to stay the same regardless of whatever type of block you're using for the wall. For instance, if I added a foundation here, like stone or something, then these blocks would stay the same. They wouldn't change to a different stony texture just to fit in with the rest, because you want this to be like flowing in a way so it looks like a full foundation. However, there is an exception to that rule. If you are having a foundation such as, let's grab some stone here and just like we'll just put it in this wall for now as an example. Just like that. Maybe let's go one higher. You can change whatever this block is if your framing covers the block change. And the reason for that is because if there isn't a flow to the framing, then it will not look like for instance, I now, since these two are separate, I could put a different sort of framing block. In this case, let's use acacia wood since it has that gray texture, but it's still like woody. And this is actually acceptable. But in this case, since I don't have a foundation, I am maintaining it the same. And so what I did here now is I framed the area that I probably want my window to go in, and maybe some areas for extra decoration. So let's put our window right here, and let's see if we can add some sort of lighting fixture here and here. Now I don't want to do all windows and stuff because that will come in a later episode, but for right now you can see how the framing sort of maps out where it's going to be and where the lighting fixtures are going to be. So yeah. So now we will move on to a brief summary about the whole lesson, just in case you're unclear about a few things. So, first off, framing. It is the essential tool for mapping out your walls. It can be done using any sort of block as long as it's not the same as the original wall, because otherwise it blends into the wall and doesn't actually look like a support. When applying to real life fixtures, if it has a foundation and the framing covers the block, yes, you may change whatever you're using to framing, but otherwise keep what frame block you're using as your framing. Otherwise people won't know if it's that foundation or not. Lastly, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something. Thanks again and goodbye.